I don't know what just to say. Yes, I feel like for our communities and our organizations, now is the time for us to be smart. It's time for us to think more strategically about how we're going to organize how we're going to structure our organizations. If you're unregistered, I don't think hiding and saying, oh, let me stay out of this safe zone, danger zone would be the best thing. I think also operating on the down low has its cons. Mm-hmm. So maybe this may be a push that the community needed for us to go towards better accountability for ourselves as human rights defenders, because the more people operate under the rug and without any sort of legal compliance, it's most times detrimental to us as organizers and also to the communities we serve. So it could be beneficial in that perspective. But I think how we need to organize better. We need to look at how do we structure organizations. If we know the NGO bureau is really hectic, we can look at what Guta said. Let's look at how we have companies limited by guarantee. And as you're structuring that, like, of course you can't do this alone. So come get a legal team. I don't think we can break down everything you would need to do.
Yeah.
So get a legal team, come to Harakati, let's advise you. Now is not the time for us to resolve or sit and contemplate about how this is going to affect us in isolation. Mm-hmm. More than ever, we have to now sit as a movement. If you're not registered, sit with like people that are supporting and giving affirming services for your community. And yeah, I feel like that's the best way forward.
I like that. You've segued us in a very good way into how do we hold our people through all of this legal uncertainty, right? Because then it's very fear-driven decision making, and this has been the conversation over and over again for queer organizations and queer organizers. Now the Anti-Homosexuality Act has come, Computer Misuse Act, all this, the NGO Bureau is requesting this. It's always very. We have befallen into this big
reaction.
We are very reactionary, other than preventative or precautionary. So we need to act more from precaution, other than now we have to do this and resolve this, because we as a movement, and this is something that we need to accept, is that we have experts, you guys. We have experts. Gucci, I want to hear your thoughts on this. D.
Guys, let's just...
Yeah?
They're both my name. Well, I'm that person that always judges people who say, my names are... Well, thankfully, I went to a nice school, but they beat the hell out of me for us to be able to master those things. Then that's subjective about how nice that school was. Anyway, so...
Probably the editor is going to have so much work to do.
So, how are organizations holding their people? Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to say collective care. No, before we even get into collective care, we need to have, or organizations, how do organizations hold their people? First of all, they do this before the fear is active, not during the fear itself. And I think the period of the but before even the came, we already had steps that were leading us there. We had the times they were, around the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the way when they brought new NGO, the NGO Act provisions and things like that. So within that period of time, we've seen what has been happening. And so it's like we had an introduction, an expectation, like, that thing they say in Luganda, it's just to anytime now, prepare yourselves, yeah? So, so first of all, that organizations, a thing they could do, or a thing they should do, or a thing they do, is that they should prepare for that fear. Prepare for what is coming, not when it has come.
Yes.
Prepare processes. If you need to whisk some documents away, I don't know if I'm providing information.
No, it's data security. It's data security. I mean, you have to keep your documents in a bank, and this is something that is provided for if you want your documents to not be tampered with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we feared, for example, that funding is going to be cut, we had a lot of time to think about it. We knew, for example, during the voting period of America, before they voted, before they went to the polls,
Biden's administration actually,
I think some of the things that Biden's administration was doing, they saw what was coming, so they decided to give long-term grants. Because for people who got money from USAID, they know that a lot of their grants that they signed for and agreements were for 4 years, and they signed that in 2024. That means they intended that it would cover them up to, for example, 2028. But before that, the environment was already showing. So, and Trump said a lot of these things when he was coming into power. He said he's going to chase away these people. He said he's going to cut foreign funding. He's going to do this. Everything he's doing now, everything he has done, he said he would do. So that means we had enough time, maybe not enough time, but organizations had some time to prepare for what was coming. So that means at that point, you explore alternative sources of funding. You explore alternative means of resourcing your movements. How are you doing your work? Who are you working with? Who are your allies? And what are your relationships with those allies? So if you know that there's surveillance coming in, it's because it usually just doesn't happen once, boom. Then you know that you're going to go and prepare data protection systems for your organization. You're going to prepare digital security things. You know that this is where we shall take this information. This is where we can go if anything happens. Train your staff. Don't wait for the thing to be happening, even with the AHA. The AHA, and I know it was passed in a very short time, but the discussion started in January that year. But there had already been a looming rumor.
As you understand, we are gossipers as Ugandans.
Thank you. The one thing a Ugandan loves is a good
gossip.
So these are things that we expected. So that means in that moment you're preparing. What if there's going to be more surveillance? Then what information are we providing about ourselves online? What information are we providing about ourselves in the physical? What do people know us for? Who are our members? How are they protected? Do they have initiatives or ways to protect themselves in case of anything happens? So it's about preparation, basically. You decide things before the fear is active, not during it. And then you separate organizational risk decisions from individual risk decisions. So if you know that there are things that are going to affect the organization as a whole, as opposed to individuals within the organization, then you work around the individuals. If the individuals need security boosting, then maybe if you have some funding for it, help them find new places for accommodation if they can. If you have people, for example, that are presenting a certain way, then help them to present in a way that is more palatable. And I know that is something I'm usually against, but for the sake of our security, that is something you actually ought to think about. Then there you can now start to explore, what does security look like for the entire organization as opposed to singular people? And then how do the two intertwine? So you make sure that you separate individual risks from organizational risks and how you work with them. Then build a difference between signals and actual noise. Sometimes the signals are there, but it's not exactly that it means danger the moment you hear about it. So why are you panicking? Yet at this point, what you need to do is to prepare for when the actual thing happens. So you need to learn to distinguish that. And then train your staff, or even the leaders. Leadership skills. How do they act when the pressure comes? And then how do they care for the wellness of their people that they're working with? Because at the end of the day, if your staff, for example, are not well, how are they going to protect themselves? How are they going to continue to do this extremely risky work? So you have to make sure you set up these systems. If you have enough funding for your staff to have benefits, things like health insurance, and some of our organizations don't want to do these things. When we get money, we want to eat it instead. So if you can give your staff benefits, give them benefits. Because if someone needs to access a doctor, when I have insurance, I can be able to go to the doctor immediately. So if your organization can do that, then make sure you do it. But also those benefits also maybe look at things like compliance with the laws. If you're employing people, If you're employing people, why don't you pay NSSF? Why don't you pay the taxes that you're required to pay with URA? And if you're an organization, go and apply for tax exemption. Because remember, you're complying. The first thing that you need to do before, amidst all of those things, is compliance. When you comply with everything that you're required to comply with, it is very easy for you. Okay, maybe not easy, but it's easier to navigate the system. If you have your books, you've been filing your annual returns every year, you have been having your AGMs as you're supposed to do them, you've been having what are they called? I've forgotten the name. I've remembered it. You've been having your annual reports every year. You've been doing your audits as they are. You have receipts for all your transactions. You have. There's at that point, the things that you now have to fear is maybe how is your language? How have you been working? If the state also sees that, for example, you're paying your taxes properly, the chance of them coming for you the way they would come for someone else who probably doesn't is not the same, because now the state also know they're losing from that.
You're talking about that, but this is bringing me back to a discussion I had with a few friends of mine a few weeks ago, and this is to think about even retirement for a queer person, and your point especially about paying benefits and insurance for employees and for individuals. We're talking about NSSF. That NSSF, for someone who, let's say, earns maybe about $1 million, in 3 years they have 9 million.
Yes.
Right? 9 to 10 million in the NSSF. In another 3 years, they have another 10. In another 3 years, they have another 10. Because then accumulatively, that's about the amount of money. So for a regular Ugandan earning about 1 million, for you to have, which boggled my mind, by the way, is that for you to have a retirement plan, you need about 15 years before you accumulate 40 million.
Yes.
What the hell?
Thank you.
What the hell is that? And yet,
going to do for you?
What is 40 million going to do for you in 2026?
Yes.
In 2040. What is 40 million going to do with you? We've seen the price fluctuations. We've seen the tax regulations. The price of sugar.
Thank you.
Why are you drinking sugar? I feel is what they're asking us. Do you get what I mean? But my point is that
right,
as organizations, we need to start to pay benefits. Pay the benefits, because that is a retirement plan for someone. They live hand to mouth from this money. But if you're going to earn 40 million at the end, whereby you may not be old enough yet,
but also it's important
to get that money from NSSF.
It's important to note that when you have worked within queer organizing, it is very difficult for you to transition to mainstream work. Because it's like, I don't want to call it a stain, but your CV is going to be stained.
For
the
sure.
Moment you
also,
see that,
what do you mean stain your CV? What do you write on your CV?
Thank you.
Because every person will go to that link of the organization is called what?
Thank you.
And then they'll be like, this person would not fit in
within this space.
This space. You get what I mean?
So that means I have, but your chances of getting there. For example, you come and say, I'm an advocate for the human rights of, let me say, LGBTQ persons. Do you think you're going to get a job at maybe an organization that works with children?
I say judiciary. The judiciary of Uganda. Now you want to radicalize the judicial officers?
Thank you.
Do you know? Meanwhile, you're an advocate that has worked for 15 years. You've litigated. You have written opinions. You have defended police. You've written research.
You've analyzed policies.
You still don't qualify to be Ugandan enough, because rights should be protected, should be preserved, and should be mitigated. So as organizations, let's pay our benefits. It helps so much for someone who is planning ahead of what that looks like for them for their future. I want us to go to what allyship looks like for us. Yeah, what is meaningful allyship for us? You want to cut me off? Okay.
Yeah. When we're talking about, we're talking about how organizations navigate this and how we have to check our language. That made me think this is like it's really sad because it's going to result in a lot of erasure, like just even the language we're using now. Like organizations, and for something as look at something like a research project or a research where you're going to villages, you're going to different districts in Uganda, and you're trying to see, for example, access to health, like the thing we did, access to health to LBQ women. You can't put that in the research anymore.
No.
Because once you take your finding documents, this is what they're finding a research for LBQ women. It can't happen anymore. So much as we're even doing work for ourselves, we're going to end up erasing ourselves.
Yeah.
In our reporting, in our...
Even
it's
the
quite
funders.
sad.
Within this my work, I know someone and a certain organization that was investigated and their accounts frozen by FIA simply because they got money from an organization called Rainbow Railroad. It didn't matter what work they were going to do. It mattered that the money came from Rainbow Railroad.
Honestly, the word rainbow, it's, you guys, how much rainbow did you draw when you were a kid?
Maybe it's a rainbow. That rainbow I kept drawing.
No. But remember at AHA, everything happening with AHA, there are some schools that were asked to remove the rainbow from there. That blew my mind, by the way.
Like crazy.
I could not believe in this Uganda where the rainbow comes after it has rained. You know what? You sue God. You're God anyway, not mine, but you sue your God.
You said the thing of the rainbow coming after it has rained, and I remembered on 1st June, it rained and the rainbow was there at 7 a.m.
Sue your God.
Big and so elaborate.
Oh my God. But I want us to talk about allyship for a bit. With this that has been happening, what does meaningful allyship mean for us? And what does performative allyship look like?
I'm glad you said performative.
I knew you want that question.
So maybe it may be difficult to say what meaningful allyship looks like, but I know what it doesn't look like.
Yes.
We have so many mainstream organizations, for example, holding out as people or as organizations that support queer persons, when in fact they do not. Are you the kind of ally that says you're hiring queer people, or you don't really give them their jobs?
Start that I am a queer person. Sorry, you'll check that out. I feel like that was supposed to be tea after.
Yeah. Well, are you the kind of organization that says you're working with LBQ persons or you're running a shelter, but you're the very first person that is coming to attack them when problems come? Are you the very organization that is saying you're holding space for queer people, but you're saying you're employing queer people, you're doing this, when in your organization you do not have maybe, for example, let me say human rights manual that is gender inclusive, that is inclusive of LGBTQ persons and their needs.
Gender training.
Thank you. You don't even know what SOGI means. You work with queer people and you don't even know what SOGI means. Your space is homophobic. We walk into spaces. The reason as to why, for example, queer feminists, let me say, have not tried to exclude them, but have gone to create their own spaces, is because when we're going into mainstream feminist spaces, those spaces are very homophobic. And yet again, when we come into LGBTQ organizing, that space is also very, very misogynist. So they're not going to think about the needs of the women. Everyone's thinking about, you get, even in our programming, for example, LBQ persons are not counted as key populations, yet we know very well that right now, being called a key population is what is actually helping other people within the community to have programming for their health needs. So at the end of the day, we don't know what they tell us, for example, commodities that LBQ persons need to keep themselves safe. Have you actually ever seen them? Are they available in the market? Have you, for example, seen a dental dam?
You have to cut a condom.
Nah, me, I like it raw, please.
But even then, safety.
I'm sorry.
Friend.
Sorry.
But yes.
Okay.
But yes, like, do we actually hold space
Yes.
for our people within their intersectionalities? You cannot say you are an ally of LGBTQ organizations and people, and you're transphobic. You don't even have a gender neutral bathroom. So where is your non-binary person going to go? Where is your trans person going to go? You get?
Yeah.
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 What does actual allyship look like?
That's interesting. And yet, what the Employment Act recently did has now started to advocate for child care rooms in employment spaces, which I love to see. But I think what we forget as a movement is that some of, like, the Employment Act applies to you.
Yeah.